Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today with a video discussing why I believe review scores don't matter in today's gaming culture. That means your 7s, 8s, 9s, and so on, not the people like myself and others who go based off data and say whether you should buy a game, wait for a specific sale, at what price point, and so on. Now this video discussion is inspired by Days Gone, which recently released and sits at a 72 Metascore based on critics and a 7.6 from users. Some have picked it up and found it more enjoyable than they felt reviews described it as, but that's also because some believe that 7 means a game is bad. I don't think a 7 means a game is bad. I think it means that a game is actually quite solid with some kinks. Reviews are glorified opinion pieces. What I view as a 7 may be an 8 to you and vice versa. It's all subjective. What will you like more than me? Be willing to put up with, overlook, and what areas will you lack patience in? Does great audio send you over the moon? Is rich storytelling your preference, or can frantic and fast gameplay do enough for you? It's all based on you and your preferences. For example, Danganronpa is one of my favorite series of all time. I absolutely adore V3 for its twisted nature, amazing character development, writing, and funny mini-games. But I think a lot of people would argue, Matty, this isn't a video game at all. You just read text, press X, and participate in some investigative mini-games. And while that is entirely true, I'm more patient with that because I adore its narrative style. It's all taste-based. Now, there are also games around the 7 area on Metacritic that I love to death and would not consider bad at all, such as Vampire, Dying Light, Super Dragon Ball Heroes, World Mission, World War Z, and State of Decay 2. These may sound familiar to you and not standout examples of games that received a bad hand in the review cycle. That's because 4 of these 5 examples I used came within the last year. Each of these games have neat gimmicks, strengths that I enjoy arguably more than others, but also issues that I was admittedly more tolerant with, such as State of Decay being very buggy at launch, Super Dragon Ball Heroes looking like a PS2 game, but also price is a big factor. World War Z was at $40, so I was willing to overlook some technical issues because they weren't charging a AAA price tag. State of Decay 2 was at $20, but also Game Pass is a thing that exists, so you have to account that into your review score. Nowadays, number scores don't account for that. You could also simplify the preferences of people just based off what they think looks cool, and you're able to put all of this together just by taking a look at the top selling games of this year versus their review scores and fan reception. A great example is at number 1 Kingdom Hearts 3, which did review quite well and I enjoyed it as a huge fan, but there's been some lukewarm fan reception because the game was in the oven for so long and a lot of areas were far worse than others, and naturally the story is still convoluted. At number 2 we have Tom Clancy's The Division 2, which is one I can get behind. It's a fantastic looter shooter and does justice to that genre and shows that these types of games can launch finished. Ironically though, at number 3, which was at number 2 for the entirety of the year up until recently, is Anthem, which is a game falling apart by the seams. It is a disaster. Afterwards, we have Resident Evil 2, which is one of the best AAA games to release this year, then Red Dead Redemption 2 naturally, but at number 6 is the biggest stunner of them all, Jump Force. Jump Force is awful, and I don't want to mince words on that one. It is seriously meme worthy. The only thing cool about it is the flashy anime action and the character roster, but the fighting is terrible, the story is terrible, the technology in that game is terrible, the infrastructure for the missions is terrible. Everything about this game is not good, and reviews and also fan reception show just that. But yet, here it is, releasing in February, yet still a top 10 selling game for 2019 thus far. For some, the review scores don't do the trick. Some may say, for Jump Force for example, hey, if you love funny, crazy anime action, you'll enjoy this game. It's not a deep fighter. Some may say, hey, if you like flying around and shooting stuff with friends, Anthem's up your alley, even if it's not a super complete game. Or some may say, you like Disney, your kids like Disney, do you like crazy characters and convoluted storytelling, then go pick up Kingdom Hearts 3, you don't need to play the others. And those subjective pieces of data are what help people truly buy games, because we're gonna single out IGN. Now, why just IGN? Because a lot of reviewers exist. I think it's because they're easily one of the biggest review platforms out there that influences both core and hardcore gamers. They have excellent numbers, millions and millions of viewers on their site each month. They truly have an influence on gaming nowadays. So let's take a look at some of the most recent reviews from them. We have Mortal Kombat 11 on the Switch, which receives a 7.8 out of 10, noting that it's impressive it plays so well on the Switch and on the go, but that also its always online nature kills the portability factor. Now, just a mere day before this review, we have Imperator Rome, which is praised for its amount of strategic options packed into this game, which is equal parts daunting and exciting. The major complaints surround its interface and undercooked tribal mechanics. Its score? An 8 out of 10. So what's the 0.2 difference here that separates these two games? It's so minimalistic and serves zero purpose to the consumer who may be interested in both genres in distinguishing which game is better for them. And that's not just a small demographic. I'm one of the people who loves pretty much any genre that exists in video games except puzzle games specifically. Now, IGN has a review policy on their site where they actually counter this argument by saying scoring within the score is simple. We apply a whole integer score, a 3, a 5, a 7, a 9, then we indicate what kind of 7 or 9 that is. Is it barely a 7, like in the 7.1 to 7.3 territory? Is it a strong 7? It's likely a 7.5 to 7.7. Is it among the strongest 7s or among the best good games out there as defined by our written descriptions below? Is it just short of being a great game? It's a 7.8 or a 7.9. It's a scoreception, so they pretty much meme themselves in a response to this. Generally, they're ranking their games on how strong the individual reviewer believes it is closer to average good or good? If you really want to split hairs, I'd love to dive into the minds of some of the reviewers at IGN and ask them how they determine that a game is a 7.7, aka a mid-tier good game, and another game is a 7.8, which is a good game. Yes, we're going to keep using that term. I don't believe it's humanly possible to distinguish those minute differences and slap a decimal-based score to the product, because ultimately comparisons are going to be made, especially nowadays in an industry where we have 5,000 AAA games launching every single month and consumers become baffled. I review games personally based off a buy, wait for sale, or pass scale, and I openly scale based off a $60 price tag. But when I do say wait for a sale, I specify the dollar amount, as I too, as a consumer, would wait until. My process for reviews isn't overly deep. It's merely offering as much data as possible to the consumer so they know everything about the game without being spoiled prior to a spending decision. From my perspective, that's all a consumer needs, because then with all the proper information on the game and not summing it up with a score, they can simply decide if the game itself is for them, thus avoid hinging a $60 purchase on a decimal. Is my review system perfect? I'm sure it's not, and I'll bet there are people who could poke holes in it. However, it brings up my next major point. Watching one single review from one YouTuber or one press outlet is a huge limitation to you as a consumer. Watch reviewers whose tastes don't assimilate with yours. Watch ones that do. Watch ones that you've never seen before. Hell, I don't care if mine doesn't categorize under your reviews and you don't want to watch them. I just want people to be smart with their purchasing decisions, because one of the worst feelings is buying a game and it not being at all what you were described to as by that one person you thought you trusted. Get all the information you can, people. It makes a difference. But back to our original focus with this discussion. Don't let number scores determine your purchasing decisions. I love Remember Me. That game got a 5 across the board, but I thought its universe was awesome. I loved the combo lab. It was a truly intriguing and different style game. There's nothing quite like it, and ironically, that's from the folks who actually made Vampire, which is one of my favorite games in the last year, and that was on the list of 7s I also enjoyed. Average games can be good if they assimilate with your taste, so do your research based off that. Acquire the proper data. Don't simply go based off the number score, because sometimes that'll steer you away from something you could truly enjoy. All I'm trying to look out for you guys here is to drive you towards better games. If you like your number review scores, by all means keep doing so, but I think I made a sound argument on why not only can you take a look at these numbered review scores, but you should also take a look at other reviewers in the gaming industry, because then you'll get more data, have a better understanding of the product, and not just hinge it based off what an IGN and GameSpot would say. And lastly, I know it goes without saying, but I still want to make sure I put it out there into the world just to be safe, that there is no malicious intent in this video. I'm not trying to drive any viewers away from different reviewers and toward myself or toward others. That's not the goal at all. I'm just fighting for more information and reviews, and maybe that some dated systems should be getting revised. Other than that, if you have your bulk of reviewers that you enjoy, continue enjoying them. I just recommend getting all the data possible. But other than that, I just wanted to make sure everyone knows I'm not trying to push people away from other content creators, because there's a lot of fantastic ones out there. That'll do it for me, ladies and gentlemen. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the review culture in gaming nowadays. What do you think the best route is? Fire away in the comments down below. Do you think there needs to be change? Do you like how things are now? Do you prefer number scores versus data? How do you approach the review conversation? Because I'd love to see all that feedback down below. Please, I insist, fire away, because this is a very information-driven video and your feedback matters. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook. Those links are in the description down below, along with my Patreon. Do consider supporting that, as it fuels all the content I create here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.